They say real power is invisible until it looks you in the eye. This story is about a billionaire tech CEO who lost his daughter and nearly lost himself until a boy the world never saw handed him back the truth, wrapped in broken shoelaces and a butterfly pendant. What began as a frantic search became a reckoning with betrayal, justice, and a new kind of family. That necklace. Where did you get it? Nathan Cross's voice cracked before the words even left his throat. The red light on Fifth Avenue might as well have been a stop sign from the universe. He had been sitting in his self-driving Tesla, staring into nothing when the glint caught his eye. A silver butterfly, delicate, unmistakable around the neck of a boy, weaving between cars holding a tray of candy. The same butterfly pendant he had custom-made for his daughter Emily last Christmas. The same one she wore when she vanished 4 days ago. The moment shattered all logic. Nathan pushed open the car door mid-intersection, ignoring honking cameras, and even the voice in his car reminding him to remain inside for safety. "Hey, kid!" he shouted. The boy glanced back, eyes sharp wild, and bolted into the crowd. He didn't run like a thief. He ran like someone who'd been chased before by people with power. People who didn't ask, they took. Nathan chased him anyway. Tie flapping behind shoes, not made for New York sidewalks, pounding after the child's worn sneakers. "Wait! I'm not here to hurt you!" he yelled, breathless. "I just want to talk. About the necklace. Please." The boy finally stopped in front of a boarded-up corner store. He turned, breathing hard. He couldn't have been more than 12, skin ash-dusted jeans, too short, tray of candy, barely held together with tape. His gaze met Nathan's with the practiced caution of someone who knew what happened when rich white men got angry. "I didn't steal it," the boy said, voice low but steady. "Swear to God. I believe you." Nathan took a shaky step forward. "That necklace. It belongs to my daughter. Emily. She's missing." Something shifted in the boy's face. He hesitated, then glanced around before whispering, "She's not dead." Nathan's heart stopped. "What? She's alive. I found her 3 nights ago." The boy looked down. "In the Bronx. In an old place. She was hurt. Hiding. Told me to find her dad. She gave me this." He held up the necklace like it burned his fingers. "Said you'd know." Nathan nearly collapsed on the sidewalk. It wasn't just hope. Hope was fragile. This was clarity, like a blade cutting through the fog. "Take me to her. Now. Please." "Not so fast," the boy said, still guarded. "There's stuff you need to know. First, my name's Jayden. Second, the guy who dropped her there." She knew him. Called him Uncle Charlie. The name hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. Charles Redford. His best friend for 15 years. Godfather to Emily. Chief of security at Crosstech. The man who held his hand when Emily's mother died. Who insisted just 2 weeks ago that Nathan increase surveillance because he had a bad feeling. "No," Nathan said aloud, staggering back a step. "That doesn't make sense." Jayden tilted his head. "You sure?" Nathan didn't answer. Couldn't. He was replaying every moment, every conversation with Charles. The late-night calls. The push to bring in private contractors. The way he'd told Nathan not to involve the police too soon. "I saw him," Jayden continued. "I was getting food from the shelter by that building. He dropped her off, but he wasn't alone. There were 2 other guys with him. One wore a cop's badge. The other... I seen him on TV. Congressman or something." Nathan's legs gave out. He sat down on the sidewalk, right there in the city he thought he owned. "How did you know to help her?" he finally whispered. Jayden looked away. "She reminded me of someone. My sister. She didn't make it." There was a silence then, thick and electric. The kind of silence that crackles before the storm. Nathan stood again. This wasn't about money. This wasn't about image. This was war. "Come on," he said. "We're not going in my car. It's too flashy. Let's take the subway." And Jayden. "Yeah. Thank you." Jayden didn't smile. "Don't thank me yet." As they walked toward the station, Nathan couldn't stop thinking about what Jayden had said. That Charles wasn't alone. that this went deeper. He kept hearing the phrase Emily used, Uncle Charlie, and he wondered what else had Charles called himself to get close. Because if Jayden was right, this wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated. And it wasn't just about Emily. It was about destroying Nathan himself. But even as fear settled into his chest, Nathan felt something else stir resolve. He looked at Jayden, this kid in a hoodie with duct tape shoes, who somehow saw everything, and realized in a world full of cameras, the only one who'd truly seen was someone no one had noticed. And that might be the only advantage they had. In the shadows of a Bronx basement, Nathan will finally lay eyes on Emily. But what she says will crack open a deeper conspiracy, one that makes betrayal look like kindness. "You sure you want to see this?" Jayden asked, as they climbed the narrow graffiti-tagged stairwell of the abandoned building. "'Cause once you do, there's no going back." Nathan didn't answer. He was already descending into a version of his city. He had never known a city beneath the city where no news cameras rolled and no private security drones patrolled. The hallway smelled of mildew and rotting plaster. A broken teddy bear lay near the baseboard. The silence was loud. Jayden paused outside a rusted metal door. "She's behind here. Been keeping the rats out best I could. She's real weak. Barely talks." Nathan took a breath and nodded. Jayden pushed the door open. The room was barely more than a gutted storage space, cracked concrete, one dim beam of daylight sneaking in from a broken vent. And in the corner, curled into a ball on a thin, dirty mattress, was Emily. She was clutching a small bear Nathan didn't recognize, and her face. God, her face looked older, haunted. 9 years old, but her eyes. They belonged to someone who had seen too much. "Daddy," she whispered, barely audible. Nathan dropped to his knees and wrapped her in his arms so gently he might as well have been holding air. "I'm here. I've got you. You're safe now." But even as he held her, her small hands trembled. Her voice, when it came, was shaky. "Uncle Charlie said it was a game. That you knew. But then he got mad on the phone. Real mad. He yelled about money and contracts and said if I told anyone she gulped something bad would happen to you too." Nathan's blood ran cold. Jayden crouched, nearby, arms folded. "She told me stuff. About your company. About phone calls and transfers." Emily nodded slowly. "He talked about moving money. Said it'd be all done before Daddy even noticed I was gone. Said the board would be his soon." Nathan looked at Jayden, disbelief and rage warring behind his eyes. He dropped his phone once Jayden said quietly, "Didn't know I was nearby. I heard him talking to someone. Said, when the dust settles, his daughter'll be a distraction footnote. The real prize is Crosstech." Then he laughed. "Sir?" He laughed. Nathan's hands clenched involuntarily. Charles Redford had been by his side through everything. The IPO, the death of his wife, Emily's first piano recital. He remembered Charles carrying Emily on his shoulders through Central Park. That same man had left her here to rot, and all to gain leverage over a company. Nathan stood up, his voice now, steady cold. "He planned all of it." Jayden nodded. "Yeah. And he had help." "What do you mean?" Jayden looked away, hesitant. "I saw him yesterday morning. With 2 men. One of them I recognized from the news. Congressman Derek Moore, the one who's always talking about family values, church, and whatever." Nathan blinked. "That's not possible. Moore donated to the foundation in Emily's name." "Exactly," Jayden said. "Cover story." Nathan felt his worldview bending. He was a man who prided himself on knowing people, on reading intentions. But he had missed this. And the cost had almost been everything. "I need to call the police," he muttered. Jayden shot him a look. "Bad idea. What, one of the guys with Charles was a cop? I didn't get his name, but he had a gold badge and a radio. They're in this together, sir. You go to the wrong person, and Emily disappears for real next time." Nathan sat down on the edge of the mattress. His daughter rested her head against him, half asleep, but safe. "Then we go private," he said quietly. We build a case. With evidence. Proof no one can ignore. Jayden tilted his head. And how you gonna do that? You don't exactly blend in. Nathan glanced around the crumbling room. I won't have to. You will. Jayden's eyes widened. You want me to spy? I want you to listen. Like you already have. Watch them. Hear what they say when they think no one's watching. Jayden hesitated, chewing his lip. If they catch me, they won't. We'll be smart. We'll be patient. And I'll protect you. Jayden nodded slowly. All right. But you'll need someone else too. Someone who knows the law. And who isn't for sale. Nathan's eyes narrowed. I think I know someone. As the sun began to rise through the vent, lighting up the dust in the air like fireflies, Nathan held his daughter close and looked at the boy across from him. This wasn't just about rescuing Emily anymore. This was about justice. For her. For Jayden. For all the people Charles and his kind had crushed while hiding behind polished smiles and political handshakes. This was about exposing the kind of corruption that wore suits, signed checks, and smiled on TV. This was about burning it all down. As Nathan turns to Carmen Morales, a sharp-witted lawyer from the Bronx with a history of fighting corporate abuse, secrets inside Crosstech begin to unravel, and so does Nathan's faith in everything he built. Carmen Morales didn't pick up her phone the first time Nathan called. Or the second. It wasn't until his third attempt, after he texted her the words, Emily is alive. I need legal cover now, that she responded with a simple address and a time. If you're lying, she'd warned him flatly, don't bother showing up. By 9 a.m., Nathan stood outside a low-rise legal clinic in the Bronx, still in the same wrinkled dress shirt from the night before. He hadn't shaved. He hadn't eaten. But something in his posture was sharper now. It wasn't desperation. It was direction. Inside, Carmen sat behind a desk stacked with manila folders and half-filled coffee mugs. Her short curls were pulled back tightly, and her expression was unreadable. She was 38, sharp as broken glass, and carried the weight of a city that often looked away from people like Jayden. She didn't care about Nathan's net worth. She cared about what the system did to kids who ended up invisible. Start talking, she said before he sat down. Nathan didn't sugarcoat anything. He told her about Jayden, about finding Emily, about Charles, the phone calls, the money transfers, the congressman, the cop. He handed her a flash drive Jayden had recorded with snippets of whispered conversations from Charles's calls, just enough to prove they weren't paranoid. Carmen didn't blink once through the whole thing. You're saying your head of security faked your daughter's kidnapping so he could steal your company and sell it off piece by piece? Yes. And he's got political cover law enforcement in his pocket and access to your entire infrastructure. Yes. She leaned back and let out a long breath through her nose. Typical. Nathan frowned. Excuse me. She spun the flash drive in her fingers. You think this is the first time a rich white man used tragedy to power grab in plain sight? The only difference is this time he made a mistake. He left a witness. And that witness grew up not trusting anyone, which means he watched everything. She looked him dead in the eye. Jayden is the most dangerous person Charles never saw coming. Nathan couldn't help it. He smiled. That's exactly what I thought. Carmen opened her laptop, slid the drive in, and her eyes lit up as audio filled the room. He'll never notice until it's done. The boards distracted the media's chasing missing girl headlines. We're clear to move funds tomorrow. She raised an eyebrow. This is gold. She began typing rapidly, already pulling up public filings, court documents, corporate ownership maps. You have anything on the congressman? Not yet. But Jayden says he meets Charles at a spot near East Tremont, low profile. I'll get more. Don't. We will? Carmen corrected. You're not stepping foot anywhere near this without being tracked. Nathan nodded. He was learning quickly. As Carmen dug deeper, she frowned. Wait a second. Here. She turned the screen toward him. 3 days ago, your company authorized a series of emergency funds reallocations, signed by your digital ID. What? Nathan leaned in. I didn't sign anything. No, she said. But Charles did. He spoofed your access. That's felony-level fraud. She smirked. And that's just the appetizer. Guess what accounts the funds were routed through? Nathan stared. His personal bridge account, she said with a grin. Which means? We can trace everything. Exactly. She scribbled on a legal pad. We'll need affidavits, timestamps, location metadata bank confirmations. But this is no longer a theory. It's a takedown in the making. Nathan exhaled, like he hadn't breathed in days. So what's the next move? Carmen's expression darkened. We let Charles keep thinking he's ahead. Let him perform. He's going to try to find your daughter in a big heroic gesture, right? Nathan nodded. He told the board he had a plan in motion. Perfect, she said. Let him set the stage. Meanwhile, we arm Jayden with a mic. I'll prep a packet for federal review. We gather enough rope, and Charles will hang himself. Just then, the door creaked open, and Jayden stepped in, holding a folded paper bag. I got eyes on them again, he said, tossing it on the desk. Charles the congressman, and a new guy. They're meeting tonight. Corner booth at a place called Roma's East Side. Private room. I'll go in as delivery if you can get me the gear. Carmen didn't miss a beat. Done. Jayden glanced at Nathan. You okay? Nathan hesitated. No, but I will be. Carmen stood. One more thing. We'll need someone on the inside to handle real-time extraction if anything goes south. Jayden raised an eyebrow. Like a fallback exactly. Someone who looks like they belong, but isn't afraid to break protocol. Jayden shrugged. I know a guy. Used to sleep behind the shelter with me. Now he mops floors at Roma's. Quiet. Watches everything. Nathan looked at the boy. You're sure? Jayden gave a small smile. Like Carmen said, he's invisible, which makes him priceless. That night, as Jayden left with a wire sewn into the hem of his hoodie, Nathan stood on the roof of Carmen's clinic and looked out over the Bronx skyline. This wasn't the world he was born into, but it was the one he had chosen to fight for now. He pulled out Emily's butterfly necklace from his coat pocket, the diamond glinting under streetlight. A symbol of what had been stolen, and what would never be again. Inside Roma's, Jayden walks into the lion's den, armed with nothing but a hidden mic and everything he's overheard. But what he captures will do more than expose Charles. It will pull the mask off an entire system. Jayden adjusted the strap of the insulated delivery bag slung over his shoulder and stepped through the back entrance of Roma's Italian steakhouse, the butterfly necklace glinting faintly from Nathan's pocket, still lingering in his thoughts. He wasn't scared, not exactly. But his heartbeat had a different rhythm tonight. This wasn't street hustle. This was chess. And for once, he wasn't just a pawn. Inside, the smell of garlic and expensive cologne filled the air. Servers in black vests moved like shadows between mahogany booths and linen-covered tables. No one looked twice at a kid delivering food, especially not a kid who knew how to make himself invisible. He approached the kitchen entrance where an older man in a janitor's uniform gave him a nod. Go slow. Private rooms in the back left. Red door. They're all in there. Congressman Charles and someone new. Jayden kept moving, each step quiet, calculated. He could hear his own breath. The mic Carmen had sewn into his jacket collar was live, transmitting everything to the surveillance van parked 2 blocks away, where Nathan, Carmen, and 2 federal agents were listening with headphones on and jaws clenched. As he passed by the hostess stand, he spotted the red door. He knocked once, then entered with his head slightly bowed. The room smelled of wealth and something sour like power that had gone bad. Charles Redford sat at the head of the table, laughing into a glass of brandy. Next to him, Congressman Derek Moore leaned back with the lazy confidence of someone used to saying one thing on camera and doing the opposite in private. The third man, thick-necked and quiet, wore a badge barely concealed beneath his blazer, Lieutenant Ray Vaughn, the cop Jayden had seen before. Finally, Charles said, waving him in, "Put the food there and scram." Jayden obeyed, placing the bag on the table and beginning to turn before Charles chuckled. You know I should buy this whole chain someday. Maybe turn it into something high-end. Call it Redford's. You'd come right, Derek. The congressman raised his glass. Only if the lobster ravioli stays on the menu. Priorities. Charlie. Vaughn smirked. I'll take a seat near the exits. Always good to know when to disappear. Laughter. Easy. Confident. They had no idea. Jayden hesitated at the door, pretending to fumble with the zipper on the empty bag. The mic caught it all. Charles leaned forward. Here's the breakdown. Derek, you get $70,000 wired through the non-profit shell we set up last spring. Looks clean on paper. Vaughn, yours will be in crypto, same wallet as last time. The congressman nodded. What about the girl she's taken care of? Charles said coolly. The father's broken. I'll find her next week, play the hero. Public sympathy will go through the roof. Then, we spin the press, clean up the noise, and push the sale through. Vaughn tilted his head. And what if Cross starts sniffing around? He won't. He's too emotional. Guilt makes people slow. Jayden felt his blood boil. But he said nothing. He backed out slowly, let the door click shut, and exhaled only when he rounded the corner back into the main dining room. Outside in the van, Carmen's face was stone. We've got them. All three, talking numbers, names, strategy, and motive. Nathan was quiet, staring at the live transcript scroll across the screen. Every word was a knife, every sentence confirmation of a betrayal too deep to fix. They're not done, Carmen muttered. Jayden, if you can hear this stall. They're about to drop names. Back inside, Charles was still talking. Board members are already on edge. One more week of no news, and they'll beg me to step in. Then, I trigger the clause shift, Nathan's voting rights to emergency proxy. Boom, CEO status. With the congressman's blessing, the merger with Veltrix goes through. I'm Rich Crosstech, becomes a pawn, and the girl gets a therapy scholarship somewhere sunny. Jayden stopped in the hallway, pretending to check his phone. His fingers were shaking, but his face stayed calm. Back in the van, the agent next to Carmen cursed. That's corporate sabotage, fraud, wire transfer crime. He's planning a hostile takeover through kidnapping. Carmen's voice was cold, and laundering it through a child's trauma. Nathan didn't speak. His hand was clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. Jayden slowly made his way out the back entrance, gave the janitor a look, just a nod, and walked into the night. The cold hit him like a slap, but he welcomed it. It kept him sharp, alive. He ducked into the alley, where a second mic team was waiting, and peeled off the jacket carefully. You get it all. Every word the agent said. Kid, you just delivered the whole case. Back at the legal clinic, Carmen uploaded the audio to a secure federal server, while Nathan stood by the window staring at the skyline. She was never the point, he said finally. Emily was just the excuse. This was always about greed. No, Carmen corrected. It was about power. The kind they think they're owed, because they wear the right suits and know the right people. But power doesn't protect them now. Evidence does. Jayden walked in a few minutes later. His hoodie was damp, but his eyes were alive. They think they're invincible, he said, but they didn't count on us. Carmen turned toward Nathan. It's time. We don't wait. We go public. Let the world see what they did. Nathan looked at the boy. You ready for that kind of spotlight? Jayden shrugged. Been invisible my whole life. Feels good to finally be seen. Nathan nodded, reaching into his coat and pulling out the butterfly necklace again. He pressed it into Jayden's palm. This started with her, but it ends with you. The trap is set. In a staged media stunt, meant to crown Charles the savior of the Cross legacy, Nathan and Jayden planned to flip the script live with cameras rolling, allies in place, and justice one breath away. Jayden stared at the butterfly necklace resting in his palm. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, without a word, he slipped it back over his head. The chain was too delicate for someone who had grown up surviving pavement and concrete, but somehow it fit. Let's make it count, he said quietly. 3 days later, Charles Redford stood on a podium outside the Crosstech headquarters cameras, flashing like lightning all around him. The press release had billed the event as a breakthrough in the search for Emily Cross. Charles wore a tailored navy suit, the knot of his tie as precise as the lies he'd built this stage on. Behind him stood a poster-sized photo of Emily, her eyes innocent and softly smiling, a child weaponized into a publicity stunt. Carmen had predicted every detail. He's going to find her live in some dramatic fashion, use it to position himself as a protector, then push the board to vote Nathan out for incompetence. So they'd let him think it would work. Behind the scenes, Nathan had pulled every favor, activated every trusted contact who hadn't been bought or corrupted. Carmen handled the legal choreography, timing it all down to the second. Jayden. He handled the streets, the whispers, the parts of the city no drone or executive ever saw. Today, they were all converging. Inside the building, Emily was safe in a private suite, 2 floors above the stage, guarded by federal agents. Nathan had refused to put her on camera. "She's not a prop," he told Carmen. "She's my daughter." But the public didn't know that. They believed Emily was still missing, and Charles was about to lead them on a lie that would shatter under its own weight. Jayden arrived at the scene dressed as a young intern, clipboard and hand badge, reading logistics assistant. No one stopped him. That was the gift of being underestimated. You slipped through every crack they didn't even know existed. At precisely 11:58 a.m., Charles tapped the microphone and began his speech. "For days I've walked this journey, not just as a security officer, but as a godfather and a friend to this family," he said, voice thick with performative gravity. "And today, I'm honored to share a breakthrough. Emily is alive. And I know exactly where she is." The crowd gasped. "Through tireless effort, private leads, and our unshakable hope, we believe Emily will be reunited with her father within the hour." Backstage, Carmen whispered into her earpiece. "Jayden, confirm. Is he moving to the reveal location?" Jayden spoke low. "Yeah. He's heading to the East Garden. Media's following." Carmen signaled the van. "Agents, prepare intercept. Nathan, you ready?" Nathan adjusted his tie in the rearview mirror. He wasn't wearing a suit, just a gray sweater and dark slacks. The clothes of a father, not a CEO. "I'm ready." Charles walked confidently through the East Garden archway, leading the reporters toward a white tent. His voice rose theatrically, and now, by the grace of, he stopped. Inside the tent, surrounded by 2 federal officers, stood Nathan. Beside him, Jayden. And behind them, a large portable monitor displaying a paused video, Charles, Congressman Moore, and Lieutenant Vaughn laughing over lobster at Roma's. Charles froze. "What is this?" Jayden stepped forward. "This is what you didn't see coming." He pressed play. The footage rolled. Every sentence, every number, every criminal confession laid bare. Reporters looked at each other. Microphones turned like radar. Phones came out. Live streams activated. Carmen's voice echoed through the tense speakers. "Charles Redford, you are under federal investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud, kidnapping, and abuse of power. Congressman Moore and Lieutenant Vaughn have been detained. And yes, the girl is safe." Charles looked at Nathan. "You set me up." Nathan didn't blink. "No. You set yourself up. I just let you talk long enough to finish the story." Cameras flashed wildly. The narrative had flipped mid-broadcast. Charles reached for his phone, but Jayden snatched it first. "Don't worry," he said coolly. "We backed everything up." The crowd outside the tent was swelling. Chants began. "Justice for Emily Cross. Not Redford. Never again." Charles tried to lunge, but an agent pinned him with a practiced move and cuffed him mid-sentence. The symbolism was brutal and perfect. Nathan stepped forward to the microphones. "My daughter is safe. She will not be displayed for your cameras. But you deserve the truth. This company, this city, and this country cannot survive on lies built by powerful men manipulating trauma." He looked directly into a camera. "This ends today." Jayden stepped up beside him. And it doesn't end with just one arrest. Reporters surged forward, but federal agents held them back. Carmen emerged from the crowd handing Nathan a thick folder. "Want to tell them what else we found?" Nathan opened it, revealing a web of shell companies, forged signatures, and redirected charity funds. This wasn't just about stealing a company, he said. This was about building an empire on the back of a kidnapped child. The weight of the words hung heavy. But in that silence, something broke. And something new began. As the news explodes across the nation, and Crosstech reels from its betrayal, Nathan returns home to a daughter forever changed, and to a truth more devastating than he feared. Emily had heard another voice during her captivity, and it belonged to someone he loved. Nathan didn't return to the Crosstech office that day. He didn't speak to the board, or the press, or even Carmen after the final words of his statement echoed through the crowd. He just went home. Home, not the penthouse in Tribeca, but the quiet rental in the Bronx where Emily had been recovering, where everything smelled like cotton sheets and late-night soup, where healing had a sound silence, broken only by the hum of the fridge and the occasional rustle of pages from the book Jayden had lent her. She was sitting cross-legged on the couch when he walked in, wrapped in the same blanket she'd had in the safe house. Her eyes flicked up as he entered. She was still pale, still far too thin, but something in her posture had shifted. She wasn't crumbling anymore. She was watching. "You look strong up there," she said softly. Nathan sat beside her. "Did you watch the whole thing?" She nodded. Jayden kept refreshing the live stream. "We had popcorn. It got kinda loud." Nathan smiled barely. "I hope it didn't scare you." "No," she said. "You weren't angry. You were calm. Like you knew who you were." He swallowed. "I wasn't always. But I do now." There was a pause. Then Emily shifted slightly, her voice quieter. "There's something I didn't tell Jayden, or the agents." Nathan turned to her. "You can tell me anything. When Charles left me in that building." Before he slammed the door, he got a call. Nathan's hands tensed. Emily continued, eyes fixed on the blanket in her lap. "I couldn't hear all of it, but I recognized the voice on the other end. It was a woman." Nathan's throat tightened. "Did you recognize who?" Emily nodded slowly. "It was Valerie." Nathan's heart stopped. Valerie, his wife, Emily's stepmother, the woman who had been organizing search efforts, arranging interviews, bringing flowers to Emily's old school. The woman who held Nathan at night, whispering that it wasn't his fault, who cried on every morning show in America, swearing they wouldn't stop until Emily came home. Emily looked up at him, guilt flickering in her gaze. "I thought maybe I made it up. But it wasn't just one call. I heard her voice again. Twice." Nathan stared forward, his mind breaking into two timelines, one where Valerie was his partner, and another where she was a co-conspirator. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked quietly. "Because I didn't want to believe it either." Nathan stood pacing. His breath was uneven. The betrayal by Charles was monumental. But this felt nuclear. Valerie had married into their family when Emily was only 6. She wasn't just a stepmother, she had helped raise her, painted her bedroom, braided her hair. Carmen arrived 20 minutes later. Nathan pulled her aside, voice flat, but razor sharp. "We need to investigate Valerie. Discreetly. No alerts. No warrants yet." Carmen frowned. "You have something." She was on the phone with Charles. During the abduction. Carmen didn't flinch. She simply opened her laptop. "Then, we follow the money." In less than an hour, Carmen uncovered 4 international wire transfers from a real estate holding company in the Cayman Islands, one that Valerie had listed as passive income in her marital disclosures. The company was a shell. The money traced back to the same laundering path Charles had used. "She funded it," Carmen whispered. "Or at the very least, she helped cover it." Nathan's jaw clenched. "How long?" "Too long," Carmen replied. "And the way this is structured, she knew exactly what she was doing." Jayden walked in just then, holding 2 smoothies. He took one look at their faces and set both down. What happened? Nathan looked at him. It wasn't just Charles. Jayden's eyes narrowed. Who, my wife? Jayden didn't react with shock, just anger. Slow, steady, dangerous. She was the one who brought in the private contractor team, he said, thinking aloud. She told you to hire Charles in the first place. Nathan nodded. And she convinced me not to call the police the first night. Carmen snapped her laptop shut. This changes everything. You ready for round 2? Nathan didn't answer immediately. He glanced into the next room where Emily sat, sketching quietly, headphones over her ears. She looked like a kid again. A fragile piece had finally been drawn across her face. No, he said. Not yet. Emily comes first. Then, we finish it. Jayden's voice was firm. We won't stop, but we won't let her become a pawn again either. Nathan turned back toward Carmen. Set the trap, quietly. Let her think she won. Valerie's web of deception begins to unravel as Carmen lures her into a legal snare, just as Emily decides to confront her stepmother face to face, sparking a showdown that no one saw coming. Valerie thought she had won. And honestly, for 48 hours, so did everyone else. After Charles's arrest, she shifted seamlessly into the grieving yet resilient wife role. She brought Nathan warm tea before bed, scheduled therapist sessions for Emily, and even offered to resign from the Crosstech board out of respect for the family's recovery. Her smile was soft, her voice even. No tremors, no tells. If Nathan hadn't known the truth, he might have believed her. But he did. And Carmen had set the snare. They didn't confront her in a courtroom. That would come later. No, this had to end where it started, in the family's home. Nathan walked into the kitchen that morning, placing 2 mugs of coffee on the table. One for himself, one for Valerie. Thought we could talk, he said casually. She looked up from her phone, surprised but pleased. Of course. About what? He gave a soft smile. About loyalty. Across the room, Emily stood silently in the doorway, her hands gripping the hem of her hoodie. Jayden was beside her, arms crossed, watching Valerie with that unreadable expression only he could wear. Valerie raised an eyebrow. What's going on? Nathan set down a folder. It was thin, intentional, unassuming. Carmen found 4 wire transfers from your shell company in the Caymans, he said, tone calm, to one of Charles's slush accounts. Valerie's eyes didn't flinch, but her jaw tightened just a little. Nathan opened the folder. Inside, photocopies of transaction dates, recipient IDs, metadata. You routed money through your real estate trust, laundered it clean, funded the operation that nearly killed our daughter. Still, she said nothing. Emily stepped forward. Why? Her voice cracked. Just once. Valerie turned to her. Sweetheart, I don't know what you think you heard. I heard your voice, Emily snapped. When Charles locked me in that basement. You were on the phone. You called me a complication. I remember. Valerie's mask slipped then. Not much, but enough. Nathan kept going. You and Charles had something long before I saw it. You planted him in my company. You orchestrated the losses. You whispered in my ear not to go to the police. You used my grief to blind me. Finally, Valerie laughed, but it was dry, brittle, and exhausted. You never asked questions, Nathan. You were too busy being admired. Jayden stepped forward now. So you sold out a 9-year-old for a board seat. Valerie's smile died. Nathan stood. I'm not angry. Not anymore. I'm done giving you that power. But I am pressing charges. Right on cue, Carmen entered through the side door, flanked by 2 federal marshals. Valerie Cross, she said with crisp precision. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, wire fraud, and corporate treason. Valerie didn't fight. She just looked at Nathan one last time, as if disappointed not in him, but in how cleanly the game had ended. You won't recover from this. Nathan's voice was like ice. I already have. 3 weeks later, the headlines were everywhere. Second cross betrayal. Exposed wife behind kidnapping scheme. Stepdaughter's testimony leads to federal charges. Boy hero Jayden named co-founder of Justice Street Initiative. Emily testified behind closed doors. Jayden was granted full immunity and appointed youth advisor to a federal task force on missing children. Carmen became head legal counsel for the Justice Street Foundation. And Nathan, he stepped down from Crosstech entirely. I built it with trust, he told the board. And when that trust was corrupted, the foundation cracked. It's time to build something better. He started a new firm, Groundline, a consulting organization for systemic recovery companies, nonprofits, city departments. His hiring policy was radical. No Ivy League requirements, no legacy preferences, just character resilience and vision. Jayden enrolled in a hybrid schooling program, splitting his time between academics and community outreach. At his first speaking event, he stood in front of 200 middle schoolers and said, "They thought I didn't matter, that I didn't count. But when no one sees you, you see everything." As for Emily, she returned to piano. Slowly, softly, one note at a time. One evening, as the sun faded across their small backyard in the Bronx, she turned to her father and asked, "Do you think I'll ever forget Nathan thought about that?" "No," he said honestly, "but you'll learn to carry it lighter." She smiled faintly, playing a single chord. Then, maybe that's enough. Nathan looked out at the city skyline, its glitter, its lies, its layered truths, and let out a breath he'd been holding since the day she vanished. They hadn't just survived. They had remade the game. A powerful CEO loses his daughter in what appears to be a random kidnapping, but a street-smart boy named Jayden reveals a conspiracy that stretches from the boardroom to the bedroom. Together they expose not just one betrayal, but a rot in the system. And through that fire, they build a new family, a new justice, and a movement that gives voice to the unseen. True power doesn't come from wealth or position. It comes from who sees what others ignore and chooses to act. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about rebuilding what was broken, starting with people. If this story moved you, if you believe justice can rise from unexpected places, subscribe to our channel. Because the next hero we tell you about might be one you never saw coming.